You are born into a world where certain things are already decided, not by your choices, by your last name, by the year a trust was signed before your parents met. You do not arrive as a blank page. You arrive as an entry in a family ledger. Your birth announcement appears in a newspaper. Your mother says nobody reads, but everyone important reads. Your name is recorded by a private banker before you can hold a spoon. Your godparents are selected for proximity, history, and usefulness. By the time you are 6, adults have already discussed your school, your inheritance, your citizenship options, your manners, and the correct distance between you and the public. You grow up in a house with 14 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, a converted carriage house, and a gravel driveway that takes 43 seconds to cross by car. The house is a property before it is a home. It has a name carved into stone near the gate. It appears in county records, architectural surveys, and one book about historic estates published in 1987. You do not call it a mansion. You call it the house. Staff arrive through a separate entrance before 7 a.m. There is a house manager named Mrs. Ellery, a groundskeeper named Paul, a cook named Agnes, and 2 women who know where every object belongs. Staff have names, but you cannot be friends with them. You learn this when you are 8 and ask Paul if he can come to your school recital. Your mother pauses for less than 1 second. She says Paul has work that evening. The answer is not cruel. It is procedural. You understand that closeness has categories. You can ask for a sandwich, but not about a divorce. You can say thank you, but not confide. You can know someone's birthday, but not attend it. This is the first level of old money. You are protected from information. You are sent to a school where tuition is $58,000 per year before uniforms, donations, travel, and mandatory equipment for sports you do not like. The school has stone buildings, Latin mottos, and alumni portraits whose eyes follow you through hallways. Nobody's parents simply work. Some parents are founders, trustees, partners, chairmen, patrons, ambassadors, or people whose work is described as family business. You never ask for clarification. You learn early that direct questions are considered provincial. When a teacher asks what your father does, you say he is involved with investments. When another child asks if your family is rich, you say no. You say it automatically. You do not feel rich. You feel watched. You feel watched at dinner when your elbows are corrected. You feel watched at church when your mother touches your shoulder before you slouch. You feel watched at school when you are reminded that your grandfather sat on the board for 22 years. You feel watched at Christmas when you receive a leather-bound atlas and write thank you notes before playing with anything. The rules are not posted. They arrive through silence. You do not discuss money. You do not discuss the price of the house. You do not discuss the source of money. You never discuss what your father does. You do not say your parents control 7.4% of a private logistics company founded before interstate highways existed. You do not say your grandmother's side owns timber rights in Georgia, mineral royalties in Alberta, and voting shares that have not traded publicly since 1969. You do not say your school fees are paid by a trust created when your father was 12. You say your family has been fortunate. At 10, you learn that fortune is a permitted word because it sounds like weather. At 12, you attend a birthday party at a classmate's country estate and notice that nobody runs when the helicopter lands. At 13, you realize your classmates recognize one another's last names before they recognize faces. At 14, you are told not to post photographs of the front of the house online. At 15, you are allowed to have an Instagram account, but your mother asks for the password. At 16, you see your father's name in a lawsuit reported in the Financial Times, and nobody mentions it at breakfast. Later that week, you stop in the hallway outside the dining room. You hear your parents discussing whether you should be told about a trust that vests at 25. Your father says you are too young. Your mother says children sense more than adults admit. Then the conversation stops because someone notices you standing near the umbrella stand. No one explains. Your father asks if you finished your history paper. You say yes. That evening you learn that information is not given when you are curious. It is given when the structure requires your signature. You were born into a system, and the first thing the system teaches you is to never talk about the system. At 17, you graduate under a white tent while 3 trustees shake your hand. Your college admission is described as the result of fit, preparation, and legacy context. You know the word, legacy has mass. You leave the house in a car your parents call practical, a $64,000 Volvo wagon with all-weather mats. You are going somewhere public enough to be educational and private enough to be safe. At 18, you arrive at college with 4 suitcases, 2 framed photographs, a family credit card, and the instruction to avoid unnecessary attention. The dorm room is smaller than your childhood closet. Your roommate is from Ohio, has a scholarship, and has already calculated the cost of every textbook. He works 18 hours a week at the campus library. He talks about loans with the fluency your family uses for trusts. He knows his interest rate is 6.54%. He knows his grace period. He knows the exact date his first payment will be due. You have never seen a tuition bill. You know it exists because someone signs something each semester. This is the second level of old money. You discover access. For the first time, you meet people who earned what they have. They described financial aid packages, summer jobs, transfer credits, Pell Grants, and the price difference between eating on campus and cooking pasta in a dorm kitchen. They use money as a number. You were raised to use money as an absence. Old money simply is. New money announces itself. You learn this during your first month, when a boy from Miami tells everyone his father sold a software company for $92 million. He wears watches large enough to explain themselves. He says the phrase generational wealth before Thanksgiving. He uses the word network as a verb. People find him interesting for 3 weeks. Then they find him exhausting. Your family never needs to announce what it is. Other people do it for you. A professor recognizes your last name from a foundation grant. A classmate asks if your grandfather was on a museum board. A dean invites you to a small reception with alumni donors in a room paneled with walnut. You are 19, holding a glass of sparkling water, speaking to a man who controls a $14 billion endowment. He asks about your father. He does not ask about your major. You major in history because nobody in your family asks how it will translate into income. You take economics because it is useful language. You take art history because your grandmother says one should know what one owns. You join a club whose application is officially competitive and unofficially hereditary. You learn which dining rooms matter. You learn which weekends matter. You learn which invitations arrive by text instead of email. You learn that a table in the right room can replace 300 applications. Your roommate applies to 47 summer internships. He customizes cover letters, corrects margins, and waits for automated rejections from companies that never intend to meet him. Your internship is arranged over dinner. Your mother's friend sits on the board of a private equity firm that does not post openings. You spend June through August in an office on Park Avenue, reading memos, attending meetings, and being thanked for your perspective. Your perspective is mostly silence. You are paid $18,000 for 10 weeks. Your roommate earns $4,300 at a warehouse and loses £11 from the schedule. You do not compare. Comparison would expose the machinery. The rule at this level is that merit exists, but access enters the room first. At 21, you attend your first real fundraiser. The minimum table is $25,000. The speeches are about opportunity. The donor list is sorted by tiers. The tax letters arrive later. At 22, your roommate asks how you can afford to take an unpaid research year in London. You say there are family resources. He nods once. The friendship changes by 3 degrees. Not enough to end. Enough to measure. After graduation, you stand in your dorm room while your roommate packs a borrowed car with plastic bins. He has a job in Chicago starting at $72,000 and $91,400 in student loans. You are flying to Italy for 6 weeks before beginning a fellowship suggested by someone at your father's club. He hugs you, and the hug contains both affection and arithmetic. You understand that the world has been counting differently for each of you since birth. The most important thing you learn in college is not in the classroom. It is who your classmates' parents are. At 24, you move to New York into an apartment owned by an entity whose name includes neither yours nor your family's. The rent is described internally as imputed. Your friends say you are lucky. You say yes. You do not say that luck has a legal address in Delaware. At 25, the letter arrives from a law firm. The envelope is heavy, cream-colored, and addressed to you with your full legal name, including the middle name you rarely use. It comes from a firm founded in 1896 with offices in New York, London, Zurich, and Palm Beach. The subject line refers to the estate of your grandfather. You are invited to attend a beneficiary briefing on a Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. You wear a navy suit because navy is the family color of compliance. The conference room is on the 38th floor. There is water in glass bottles, a tray of untouched pastries, and 4 attorneys who know your balance sheet before you do. The lead partner is 61, with rimless glasses and a voice optimized for discretion. He explains that your grandfather's estate includes marketable securities, private operating interests, real estate partnerships, art held through an offshore structure, and legacy assets across 3 countries. The total value of the principal trust is approximately $800 million. He says approximately because exact numbers move. The $800 million is not yours. It is the principal trust for 3 branches of the family. You are one of 23 current beneficiaries and 41 contingent beneficiaries. You do not feel $800 million enter your life. You feel a document slide across a polished table. The trust is 214 pages. Your name appears on page 37. This is the 3rd level of old money. You become a beneficiary, not an owner. You are told the trust uses a HEMS standard. Health, education, maintenance, and support. The words sound humane. They are also control language. You receive an allowance. Generous but tracked. The first scheduled annual distribution is $420,000 before taxes. Additional requests require trustee review. Housing may be supported. Business ventures require documentation. Divorce exposure is monitored. Political donations are reviewed for reputational risk. The rule is clear. The money protects you only if you do not confuse access with possession. You can live extraordinarily well without touching the core. You can fly private when justified, but not casually. You can buy art if it fits the collection policy.
You can invest personally within limits. You can start a company, but the trust will not subsidize vanity disguised as entrepreneurship. You are given a family constitution drafted after a dispute in 1998. It discusses confidentiality, governance, liquidity, prenuptial expectations, philanthropy, trustee discretion, and media conduct. It does not discuss happiness. At 26, tax documents begin arriving. K-1 S come from partnerships you have never heard of. Corrected K-1 arrive in September. A note from the office tells you not to file until they confirm the final packet. Quarterly statements arrive through a secure portal. They are 63 pages long. You skim the first one. Domestic equities, international equities, private credit, venture exposure, timber, infrastructure, hedge funds, municipal bonds, cash equivalents, and legacy holdings. The numbers are so large, they become non-physical. A 2.1% allocation is $16.8 million. A bad quarter is a loss larger than most people will earn in 5 lifetimes. You mention none of this to friends. Secrecy becomes easier when scale becomes absurd. At 27, you consider starting a food company with a college acquaintance. The family office asks for projections, cap table details, liability exposure, and whether the brand could create reputational risk. Your acquaintance asks why your people are involved. You dislike the phrase "your people" because it is accurate. The company never starts. At 28, you sign a prenuptial agreement 6 months before a serious relationship becomes an engagement. The agreement is not presented as optional. It is presented as adult. Your partner has an attorney. Your family pays for independent counsel. There are schedules of assets you are technically not allowed to claim as yours. After the second legal meeting, you sit in a quiet restaurant and watch your partner fold a napkin into quarters. Your partner asks whether any part of your life belongs only to you. You answer too slowly. That is the answer. At 29, you stop saying you might do something risky. Risk now has committees. Risk has tax consequences, reputational drag, governance exposure, beneficiary precedent, and litigation scenarios. The self-made can take risks because the downside is personal. You inherit a system where the downside becomes archival. At 30, you understand that the trust did not make you free. It made you durable. Freedom implies movement. Durability implies containment. At 31, you are introduced formally to the family office. The office occupies 2 floors of a glass tower with no name on the directory. There are 42 employees. The office does not only manage investments. It manages houses, aircraft, foundations, tax filings, security, archives, and family disputes, disguised as administrative questions. It knows when insurance renews, when art is moved, when passports expire, and when a beneficiary's spending pattern becomes statistically noticeable. Quarterly meetings take place in a conference room overlooking the river. The agenda is printed in bound packets. The chief investment officer discusses allocation. The tax director discusses jurisdiction. The general counsel discusses risk. The philanthropic director discusses commitments already made in your name. You sit at the table with relatives you see more often in meetings than at meals. There is your uncle, 67, who believes no asset should ever be sold. There is your aunt, 63, who chairs a foundation and speaks in consensus language. There is your cousin James, 39, who wants venture exposure increased from 6% to 12%. There is your cousin Elise, 36, who wants liquidity. There is you, listening. This is the 4th level of old money. You enter governance. The rule at this level is that money is no longer personal. It is political. Every distribution sets precedent. Every purchase signals values. Every allocation creates winners, losers, and future resentment. The family office does not ask what you want. It asks what can be defended. At 34, you attend an investment committee meeting where a $75 million commitment to a private credit fund is discussed for 41 minutes. A managing director presents default scenarios and downside protection. Your uncle asks 2 questions that expose a structural weakness on page 92. The room becomes colder by 1 degree. The commitment is deferred. You learn that old money likes income, control, collateral, and silence. It dislikes fashion unless fashion can be exited quietly. At 36, the family sells a minority stake in an industrial company acquired by your great-grandfather in 1934. The sale generates $312 million in liquidity. The public press release uses the word partnership. The private memorandum uses the word diversification. Your grandmother, 89, says nothing during the meeting. Afterward, she asks whether the workers will keep their pensions. No one answers quickly. At 38, the family council meets in the library of the original house. The same house where you were corrected as a child. The gravel still sounds the same under tires. The portraits still hang in the stairwell. The staff has changed, but the rules have not. Your cousin Elise wants to buy out her share. She says she is tired of asking permission to use wealth that carries her name. She wants $64 million in liquidity to build her own life, fund her own foundation, and stop attending meetings where her future is voted on by relatives. Her request is prepared, documented, and legally possible. It is also culturally unacceptable. The council votes no. The reason given is preservation of family capital. The reason understood is prevention of precedent. She does not raise her voice. She closes her folder, thanks the chair, and leaves before lunch. She stops coming to Christmas. Her absence becomes a governance topic before it becomes a family topic. On the 24th of December, a place setting is removed from the long table. No one mentions her name until dessert. Your aunt says Elise is taking space. Your uncle says the structure worked as designed. You look at the empty chair and understand that a family can preserve capital and spend people. The family office does not manage money. It manages the family's relationship with money. At 41, your own children are added to planning diagrams. They are 9 and 7. Their names appear in boxes beneath yours. You recognize the beginning of the same track. Education trusts. Citizenship considerations. Prenuptial expectations decades early. Security protocols. Media rules. The house manager corrects your son gently for asking a driver if he wants to swim. You hear your mother's voice come out of your own mouth. You say that people are working. You do not like the accuracy of it. At 43, you chair a foundation subcommittee approving grants to universities, center-win museums, conservation projects, and policy institutes. The annual philanthropic budget is $48 million. A university receives $12 million for a center on civic leadership. A hospital receives $8 million for a research wing. A museum receives $5 million and offers naming rights. The public sees generosity. The family sees continuity. The tax advisors see efficiency. The institution sees influence. All 4 interpretations are correct. At 45, you realize the meetings will never end. They will only change attendees. The staff will update software. The asset classes will evolve. The family name will move from paper invitations to secure portals. The purpose will remain the same. Prevent rupture. Preserve capital. Transmit story. At 46, you stop pretending your main responsibility is money. The portfolio has professionals. The tax code has lawyers. The assets have custodians. The name has you. This is the 5th level of old money. You become an institution. Your name is placed on a school of public policy at a university founded 171 years earlier. The gift is $150 million, paid over 10 years through a foundation. The announcement uses words like service, future, stewardship, and access. You stand on a stage beside the university president while photographers record your posture. Your remarks last 6 minutes and 40 seconds. You mention your grandfather. You mention responsibility. You do not mention capital gains. The building will have limestone, glass, a 300-seat auditorium, and a plaque your descendants will touch without thinking. The institution will outlive you. That is the point. Old money seeks objects that survive bodies, buildings, chairs, endowments, trusts, scholarships, collections, family narratives repeated until they harden into truth. At 49, a journalist requests an interview for a profile on inherited influence in modern America. The family office recommends declining. The communications advisor drafts a statement about privacy and long-term civic commitment. You approve it with 2 minor edits. The article runs anyway. It includes estimates of your family's wealth ranging from $2.6 billion to $4.1 billion. All estimates are wrong. Not because they are too high or too low, because the question assumes wealth is a pile. Your wealth is not a pile. It is a network of claims, restrictions, entities, reputations, voting rights, tax positions, and social permissions. At 52, your daughter applies to college. Her application includes excellent grades, 2 sports, a summer program in Geneva, and a recommendation from someone whose name has endowed a chair. She is capable. She is also carried. Both can be true. You watch her rehearse interview answers about service and curiosity. You recognize the family vocabulary entering another generation. At 55, you attend the funeral of your uncle. The church is full by 10:15 a.m. There are former governors, museum directors, partners from law firms, private equity executives, boarding school heads, and people who never appear in photographs. The eulogy describes character. The seating chart describes power. After the burial, there is lunch at the house. Documents will be reviewed the following week. Grief has a calendar. At 58, you become chair of the family council, the same chair where others once voted on your life. You inherit the role because you are measured, discreet, and unlikely to embarrass the structure. You preside over disagreements about distributions, marriages, political donations, and asset sales. The minutes are careful. The resentments are not. Old money does not resolve contradictions. It administers them. At 61, you walk through the building bearing your name. Students cross the lobby without looking at you. They know the name the way people know weather, street signs, and institutional facts. Near the windows, a 23-year-old sits with 2 laptops open. He is building a trading algorithm. He has $18,700 in savings, $43,000 in student loans, and a rented room in Queens. He reads billionaire profiles at 1 a.m. He is calculating his way toward wealth. You can see what he believes. He thinks the ladder goes up. 10 million. 100 million. 1 billion. Then the hidden rooms open. He thinks money becomes old when it becomes large. What he cannot see is that age is the asset. Legitimacy compounds differently from capital. The rooms he wants were never designed around entry. You pass behind him with a trustee, a dean, and a security officer who knows your schedule. He does not look up. He is calculating a way into a world that would never announce itself as a destination. You can see his ambition because ambition is visible. He cannot see your structure because structure is designed to disappear. At 64, your annual distribution matters less than your annual letter to descendants. You write about stewardship, restraint, discretion, and duty. You use the same words that once trapped you because they also protected you. You do not resolve the contradiction. You preserve it. At 67, you review a new trust for grandchildren not yet born. This is the deepest layer of silence. The structure survives you. The terms will last 90 years, possibly longer depending on jurisdiction. The attorneys discuss GST exemption, trustee discretion, directed trust provisions, and decanting authority. The document anticipates divorce, addiction, incapacity, tax changes, political risk, climate exposure, and beneficiaries with public platforms. It anticipates almost everything, except whether the children will want the life being prepared for them. The attorneys ask for approval. You sign. The pen moves once. A future narrows. This is the final truth about old money. Not freedom. Not ownership. Not arrival. Continuity. You spend your childhood thinking the fortune belongs to your family. You spend your adulthood learning the family belongs to the fortune. The highest level of old money is not having so much money that no one can control you. It is having so much structure around the money that control no longer needs a person. The trust continues. The foundation continues. The name continues. You do not. That is the point. The money was never yours. You were one of the things it preserved.